This is the Techno Buffet podcast, episode number 586, recorded Thursday, May 26th, 2022, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Well, that's an old kazoo. I need to go to this newer one. Yeah, the old kazoo, I think it's starting to wear. That's my old Lycos kazoo. No, Lycos was the company that gave out free kazoos years ago. They used to be a search engine. Yeah, I have a Lycos kazoo. So it says Lycos.com on it. So it's been an exciting week for someone. I'm sure someone's having an exciting week. I don't think my week was exciting in a good way, but just after we ended the show, you sent me a link, which I was excited about. Yes. It's not USB. ESP. Yeah, most of the button. And this is the question for you. How many do you have on order? Why, you didn't go and buy any? Do you plan on? Well, I have one of his A19s that I just activated. That's like a standard shape bulb. Is it A19 or A21? I always get my numbers wrong. I think there is an A19. Is his? Okay, then it's a 21. I'm thinking of the 19, which is slightly smaller. But if you notice, the 21 is slightly larger. Most standard bulbs are the 19, but his is actually, you're correct, it's a little larger at 21. Yeah, I have one, and what I did was, in this location, I've added in a remote so that I can go and turn it on and control it and preset it. You're talking about the round one with the 5 buttons on it? Yeah, I got one of those years ago when they were on clearance. That's fine. Not everybody has to be tall. For me, I do have the Trod Free, but I ended up I got a Sengold Smart Light Switch. Sengold, you've heard of them? Sengled. They're a company. They make a whole bunch of stuff. They happen to make a Zigbee light switch, which is similar to one that I used to get from Lutron when they made a Zigbee version. But they don't support those anymore, and they don't have a replaceable battery that doesn't require you to pop the thing open. What this is it has 4 buttons. It has an on and off, and then a increased dim and lower dim. So essentially 4 buttons. I can do whatever I want with them. Both. It has a wall mount that you can put it on a wall and it looks like a light switch. But the remote is in there using a magnet, so you can just sort of pop the remote out and use it. So I mounted it next to the bed and so that I could turn the lights off, not only in the lamp, but I have the ceiling lights that I can remotely control. So 2 different sets of lights. So that it's been a busy week for me, like last week. Hopefully next week will be less busy, but there is a whole. You may have noticed from some of my stories, I don't talk much about my profession, but it is often crazy. Where every time I think I know what's going to happen next, something new comes up. But that's a lot of jobs, I think. So every time we sit down and say, okay, well, next month we're going to do this thing. And we plan everything out, and then a crisis happens, and that thing doesn't get done, and gets pushed back, and then it gets pushed back again. And eventually we'll do the thing we actually think we should be doing. But thus is life. Anyway, so I have not accomplished very much this week that I wanted to. I did do that with the bulb, and I did a few other things. I installed over last weekend, I installed a smart water timer. But it doesn't have very good, even though it's Zigbee, it doesn't have very good Zigbee controller support, so I need to play with it a bit to see if I can get it to work, because it turns on and then it just turns off like a minute later. And it should stay on until I tell it not to, but I haven't quite figured out the controller information for it. And there are some people who are working on that apparently. But it works perfectly in watering the grass, which I haven't done in years. Well, no, I have not. I'm not going to say the grass has not been watered. I have not made myself involved in the grass watering process for some time. So this was my attempt to make myself involved by actually or trying to help out by automating the turning on of the sprinkler, which I was not the one turning on. So anyway, so hopefully that'll work out. But I just got this thing that runs on batteries that can just make the water flow. But nothing's perfect. Moving along, there wasn't that much going on this week that I was able to find. It may be because I didn't have as much time to read because I had a crazy week. But I didn't see very much. I saw a few things after I posted everything because I had a little more time this evening. But there was an article from the people over at Android Central asking if Wise products are safe. I think that they're probably right. They are. However, I was just disappointed by the whole situation of how they handled things, and it pushed me over the edge for a company that I like. But I sort of have been complaining about for a while that they don't work on their products. They just keep introducing more products. It feels a lot like I'm not going to say a pyramid scheme, but it feels very disjointed. Now, there's only one product I would consider buying from Wise right now. Because I invested in their thermostat, I might buy a room sensor because they promised me one of those a long time ago, if you remember. And I might give that a shot. Otherwise, I'm going to have to rip out the entire thermostat and replace it with another one that has that feature, and it'll probably end up being less convenient. But we'll see. Elsewhere, if you're a fan of Google Street View has turned 15. So they started that whole thing 15 years ago. I knew that. I don't know why I just said it. But they also essentially have a new camera. So they have essentially They have the Street View car. They apparently have one that is in a backpack. And they have a new camera system that apparently can be shipped anywhere and can fit on any car with a roof rack. So no special building. They also have added in time travel within Street View. So you can look at older versions of a place and see how the street has changed over time since they started taking pictures. Yeah. No, that was an invitation to answer me. That was not a, I don't know what you find most useful about that feature. Yeah, and I always noticed that because it was always in the corner. Because I always looked to see when certain things were. But anyway, I like Street View because I like seeing how places change over time. That is an interest to me. Admittedly, I'd like to see how places have changed over time further back than 15 years. But think about it when Google and Street View get to 50 years. How interesting it'll be. I'd really like it if they had a project to sort of assemble photos of different places and use them, and essentially use them in Street View. Like a photo from, let's say, 1932 of a place. It obviously wouldn't be, it wouldn't be 360. It would be interesting if they could do that. I'd be interested to see it. Well, the difference is, I don't know. Your neighborhood in Jacksonville, was it there in like 50 years ago? Okay, not every part. No, I'm saying I know there are parts of Florida that date back, but I know there's been a lot of development over the last half century. So I wasn't sure if you lived in a neighborhood that was even there or if it was nothing. Okay, that's what I'm saying. If in some places, if you look back 50 years, you'd see a swamp or a forest or what have you. I know if in the neighborhood that I grew up in, I know that it's been there for a while because there's a placard saying that George Washington marched past there. No, but there were people living there. The part that I live in was not. It did not have buildings as far as I could tell at that point, but there was a road there. So one of the roads existed, but not necessarily the dense population that there is now. Unless you want to imagine that George Washington took the Long Island Expressway. You never know. Anyway, moving along, in another story also about Street View, they also introduced Street View Studios. And they will essentially give you a loaner if you can convince the company to give you one of these cameras, which is always an interesting thing. So do you think you can actually think of a reason why you would convince Google to send you a camera and do this? And of course, they have their platform with the tools you need to publish 360-degree images quickly and in bulk, which is, again, that's their studio. So essentially, you can contribute to this. No, but I think they're doing it because for businesses, so that you wouldn't want to necessarily have them pay because you want it in there for your business. So they have a list of cameras that they consider to be Street View compatible. So that would be things. Let's see. This one's $2,800. This one's $5,500. Here's one. $376.95. Oh no, here's one. $164. There's one that will hook into your iOS device. After that, it's 376. Wait a minute. That's a comma. I thought that was a point. Excuse me. It says 376,95. Is that supposed to be a decimal point, or it can't be 376,000, can it? Hopefully that's a typo. I don't think so. I'm hoping that's a typo. But again, they have some nice looking cameras here. And here's one. The Yi 360 VR is only 159,99, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. So apparently the Theta S is only 279. So clearly you can get into this for a lower amount or a higher amount. But again, I don't know what I'd want to Street View myself or do 360s of. I played with it a few times, but I didn't necessarily, the amount of effort it takes to sort of do it, I didn't have anything I wanted to spend that much effort on. Yeah, so well, since I still have an old 360 camera that I bought when it was on clearance for like $49.99, it's not one of their supported ones, but I'm wondering, since I have data, if maybe their studio and their website would tell me how to use it better for things. But I'll see. Anyway, Google Cast, which has been around, apparently they are rolling out suggested devices. So essentially, to surface the device that you might be looking for, they're trying to test this in YouTube Music, and it may go elsewhere, to show, let's say, the usage history and type of device to actually suggest the ones that you're most likely to use that app with. So I appreciate that. If you're a user of Google TV, which I am at the moment because I am not at home, I'm in my remote location where I have a Google TV device so I can remotely get into my Myth TV DVR. They now have profiles. Yeah, they've been promising that for a long time. I don't really need a profile because right now I'm the only user, but that might not always be the case, so I am glad that they are introducing that feature. Moving along, Android 11 is now the most popular version of the OS according to the latest distribution numbers. So you remember we used to get them a lot, and now we don't quite get them a lot. So what they are saying is that even though 12 is around, it is not very popular. No, but I'm saying it's around. Do I have 12? Am I running 11 or 12? I can't even remember anymore. I think I'm running, no, I think I am, well, no, I just switched phones. I think I'm running, the Pixel 6 should be running 12. 13 is the new beta, isn't it? Now I'm confusing myself. Yeah, but I definitely have 12. That's what I thought. You were confusing me for a while. So 13 is the one in beta, 12 is the one that I'm running, and 11 is the one most people have. How's that going for you? Okay, well, I can say, having spent a few days now with the Pixel 6, and I know people were very hard on the Pixel 6 for a few reasons. One, it had a bunch of software problems, and it still does have a few. Like, a lot of people are annoyed with the in-screen fingerprint reader, and so am I. Because it doesn't always like my finger, and they have been promising to do some bug fixes on the driver, but have not. Or so everybody's saying. There were a bunch of delays in various features, and there is that camera bump on the back, but otherwise it's a very nice phone. I don't have a problem with it, and it actually doesn't slow down like the Pixel 5 was starting to do for me. So, and that may have been fixable if I'd completely wiped the phone and started from scratch, but I didn't do that. So I am happy. My battery isn't dying quite as fast. So all the things that were annoying me are back. So moving along. Apparently, the automated Play Store policy enforcement has now killed another app. So this is Fairmail, which is in the process of being reinstated. But apparently, the developer is really frustrated about this. So Fairmail is, again, not something that is malicious. It is an email app, which is what you would expect an email app to do. Namely, they flagged it as spyware because it's uploading contact lists from the phone into the app. So essentially, that is possibly a reason to grant, but that is what generally what email apps do. They get your contact list so that they can recommend contacts. Apparently, initially, their issue was that it was using Gravatar and LibAvatar to get avatar pictures. But apparently, again, it's back to, I will quote the developer, even though he's working on getting an approved version back into the store, he's apparently made the archive read-only on GitHub and say there's no sensible way to appeal in the case of bad reviews or alleged violations of Play Store policies. So essentially, he's given up on the Play Store and will just do things on F-Droid. And again, I can understand that. If you're very frustrated by something, you don't want to deal with it. That happened to GPS Logger, which I use. He got so frustrated with Google essentially flagging him and then him having to fix it that he moved over to F-Droid and removed all of the Google-specific stuff. Because, again, it just was too frustrating for him to... Because it wasn't that... He understood that he was asking for permissions that could be privacy violating. But his counter-argument was that is the nature of the app that the person wants to install. It is not hidden asking for those features. It is very clear what features it's asking for and why. But anyway, it's the automation that seems to be getting people. If you are a user of Google Workspace, which apparently I am because they forced me into it and then they told me that I could have kept my free thing. I still haven't decided if I'm going to fight that one. But essentially they have their delayed workspace search history. So this is a change where essentially they've adjusted their permissions. So web and app activity saves your activity on Google sites. And what they're trying to do is because you are a paid customer, they're not going to track you quite in the same way. So they're going to divide where they track you. You're a paying customer. Anyway. But I understand that because if you're using something for business, there are reasons why you shouldn't be tracked. Of course, if you're using something for your personal use, there are also reasons why you don't want to be tracked, but that's a whole other problem. If I understand, yeah. Well, you heard me in my rant about the fact that the only reason that I'm annoyed about paying for my email account through Google, and I'd otherwise be happy to do so, is that they do not have a plan designed for non-business. So all of the features that I am getting by giving them money are features I couldn't care less about. And you've heard me say this before. Give me a feature I actually care about. Because I am now a customer. Anyway, rant aside, if you like the Pixel launcher but you do not have a Pixel, you can try out Lawnchair, which has just launched its 12.1 alpha, which it adds an equivalent of the Android 12 at-a-glance widget and more improvements. So essentially this is where it is a launcher that looks a lot like the design of the Pixel launcher, but is not identical. So they try to have an at-a-glance widget. They try to have similar features. They have some features that are not in that, but that is the idea. It's, you like this design, we're going to give you one. And finally, if you are considering switching to Visible, Visible, remember, is Verizon's. We'll call it the postpaid network for a certain group of people on the Verizon network. And they have switched to eSIMs on several Galaxy and Pixel phones. It was already available on iPhones. So if you wanted to switch to Visible, Jerry, you could. I don't know. They have one plan. It is $40 a month, essentially unlimited, or what they call unlimited. And then if you join a party, you can get it down to $25. So party being like, what they used to call a family plan. I think they've realized that your family plan doesn't have to be part of a family, so I think they've switched to calling it a party. So you can use Party Pay. Anyway, yeah, so Visible it's sort of a self-service prepaid network on Verizon with unlimited LTE and 5G data, unlimited hotspot at 5 megabits, a very simple plan with included fees and no contract. So essentially, very good price transparency. And it's tempting only because, even though it's a little more than I'm paying right now, if I could find some other people to go in with me, it would be less. But, well, same thing with Google Fi. If I could find people to join me on a party plan, I could save some money and get more. But the thing is, Verizon is the only network I know of that has halfway decent coverage in certain places. Not everywhere, but... well, again, they're big in the Northeast, as you might imagine. What's your per person cost before taxes per line? Yeah. Unlimited? Okay. My problem is I'd need other people. So as a single individual, I have to pay more for everything. By the way, if anybody would like to go in with me on a Google Fi plan, send me a note. We could save money together. Anyway, moving along. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to tell. I think fees are deliberately opaque to most people. I'm trying to think what else we should cover, because again, it's still early and there isn't that much going on this week. Is there anything you could think of before we adjourn, other than our usual banter? Me too, but after I edit the podcast, it'll be time for me to go to bed so I can do all that work tomorrow. But until then, so next week is the 2nd of June, and my plan is to be right here with you doing this show. Yes. The following week, my plan continues to be the exact same thing. On the 9th, there may be a need to push it back slightly based on, or just by one night. So I will get back to you next week on that. Because there has been a potential change in plans. Anyway, shall we adjourn this podcast? Goodbye, everybody.